All right. Welcome to JRE for Genevieve, I believe episode 12. Genevieve, is just me and you tonight. Love you, buddy. Tonight, I thought about just kind of relaying some information, something I think that would be cool if my parents did or do in the future.
Sorry, Dave, but just start over the streamer.
Oh, no problem.
Go ahead.
Yep.
It's working now.
Welcome to JRE for Genevieve, episode 12, I believe. Genevieve, love you, buddy. Tonight, I thought I would just kind of go over a couple things. Something I thought about. I've had my dad on a few times, and something I think would be cool to hear him do. And we've gone over a lot of his life experiences on this show that I thought would be helpful. Mom's passed away, but something I think would be cool to hear from each of them would be kind of, their life story growing up, kind of get a grasp of where they're coming from, why they think, why they did what they did, and kind of get a feel for that background story. It's kind of crazy. You think, growing up with your parents, you're obviously going to get those stories. You're going to get that background, but it really feels like, and I've told you this a bunch of times, I was really fortunate to have really good parents. But, I mean, just going through the day-to-day, you don't have a lot of times the one-on-one or the sit-down experience for them to relay those life experiences or kind of like their own biographies, or they've told it to, older brothers or sisters, and maybe they think they're repeating themselves or whatever it may be. But it may not be of interest to you, but I think I would find that interesting from my parents. So, when you reach that age where you find this might be interesting, I just want it to be out there for you to have it. And selfishly as well, I think just kind of going over that. I haven't prepped a lot for it, but just kind of going back over those things, those experiences, and seeing what I can kind of glean from them. So that's kind of what I want to do tonight. I don't know how far I will get, and maybe we'll have to continue this, but even if it's just me going over these thoughts in my head, so I can make it a priority to go over these things with you in the future, and hopefully you'll be able to take away some type of lessons from them that might be helpful to you, which is kind of the idea of this whole podcast. All right, so best place to start is probably from the beginning. I was born in Kentucky, Genevieve. I was only there for like 3 months, and you're going to notice that there's a lot of different locations involved in this story. In previous podcasts, we talked about how my dad was a pilot in the Air Force, and so there was a lot of moving around. Because of that, every 2 or 3 years, we were moving to another state, another country, as part of his job. I didn't really think of the pros and cons necessarily growing up. It's just how it was. But, I think I really am thankful for that experience, because I think it does expose you to a lot of different people, a lot of different places, a lot of different situations that help you kind of create these ideas about the world. But I believe I was born, or we lived in, I think, Elizabethtown. I think I was born in Fort Knox. Like I said, we were only there for like 3 months, and then our family moved to Iowa, and we were there until I want to say I was 3, and then we moved to Spain, where I was from like 3 to 5, 3 to 6. And I want to stop there for a minute, because I know I just glossed over the first 6 years of my life. kind of quickly. But I think when I was thinking about doing this and kind of just briefly going over, those time periods, I think I found myself not having exact dates in mind or knowing exactly where it was a particular year, just because I don't have a great memory from when I was 6 or before. And I think a lot of people fall into that. I think there are definitely people who do have a better memory, a better long-term memory. Um, but I think that part is very interesting, especially because you're turning 6 next month, and you're kind of in that realm right now. And we kind of talked about how much of your early childhood, all of our early childhoods, really kind of dictate those experiences, dictate the kind of people we become or the thoughts that we have that influence, future decisions and actions. And it's kind of crazy when you think about going back and reflecting on those times and not really having a lot of memories of those time periods. So it can be kind of hard to, think about how you were or what you were thinking and see how that correlated with later decisions and experiences. Um, and I think I asked you the other day, even at 6, how far back you remembered. And I think you said something like 2 or 3 years old. Um, and even how well you remember that time is, may not be perfect. But it also kind of makes you think about just the human brain. And obviously, it's still developing. Um, why we can't remember, past a certain point, or why memories become, hazy. But I think I realized even thinking about ages past 6 that, I got memories here and there, but it's not perfect memory. I mean, you hear about those people with um, photographic memories, and they can remember exact dates and times and places and just about everything about just about their entire life. That's definitely not me. I'm probably on the other end of that spectrum, and I'm sure there's pros and cons that come with remembering everything perfectly. Um, but um, I just kind of want to put that out there that I think it's kind of interesting that while I may not remember a whole lot, I'm still sure the day in day out of those years obviously did influence me. And even if you don't know exactly how, I think it's interesting and good to reflect on what you do remember and kind of try to glean any kind of knowledge you can from that. But like I said, I moved to Spain when I was, I want to say 3. We were there from, I guess I was through 5 or 6 years old. I went to kindergarten in Spain. And like I said, it's kind of a bunch of random memories. What do I remember about Spain? I kind of vaguely remember our house where we lived. I think it was like a duplex that was connected to kind of like another house. We never really lived on base housing because our family was so large. I had 9 brothers and sisters. So we lived, off base. But it always seemed like we lived kind of around other military families. Um, I remember just some real random memories. I remember a bookmobile, a little library on wheels that came around where we'd check out books and return them every week. I remember a little corner store called La Morleja. No idea what that means in Spanish, but that's where we go and get candy on the rare occasion that we got candy. It was up a big concrete or hill with a road that came down that cars would go up and down. And I do have a random memory of riding bikes up and down there or watching people on bikes, older kids, um, going up and down that road. Um, I don't have a lot of memories of kindergarten there. I think I do remember my kindergarten teachers' names, Mr. D and Miss Parrish. You are doing kindergarten this year, and I know I went half a day, which probably seemed like a lot to me back then. It seems like everyone, or just about everywhere now, kindergartens are going a full day, which seems like a really long day for a 5-year-old. Really proud of you how you've kind of adjusted to that. Um, but I think I kind of appreciate the fact that I was able to kind of slowly adapt to that school schedule, starting with kindergarten. Um, I remember beside our house there was kind of an open area. There was tree forts. Um, and this will come up a little later, but I believe one of my older brothers for an Eagle Scout project built a basketball court right beside our house. I think that's the first place I made a basket, and basketball would become something that I would get pretty excited about, growing up, probably elementary, middle school age, early high school. Um, I remember, I think around Easter time, you could buy these plastic eggs with chickens of different colors in them. And I don't know why that sticks out in my mind. And I don't know if this is correct at all, but you could get in these little chicks, blue chicks and pink chicks and purple chicks, and um, how they dyed them, I don't know. I think one of the neighborhood kids told me they gave the adult or mother chicks some kind of pills to make the baby chicks that way, which is probably wholly inaccurate. But this is the kind of thing. It's not a straight line of memories. It's a bunch of random things that when I think about at that time, it's the same 10 or 20 memories that come to mind. And why those stuck in my mind, I couldn't tell you. But once again, you think of that, and you wanna, you think memories that stick in your mind are going to be more important, but maybe that's not necessarily the case. But yeah, and I wish I could give you some exercises to maybe improve your memory now, so you had a better shot of remembering more when you get older. But another thing that I think I've kind of come to is when you do get older, and you do come to a lot of conclusions about life and what you want and how to treat people. I think we all take different roads. We get to a lot of the same places, or we come to a lot of the same ideals, and maybe that's the important part. Is just being self-aware, and regardless of the experiences you've had, using those experiences, but also rationale to, look at the environment around you and the people around you, and see what is going to make you and them happy. So while you're definitely influenced by, and very largely by, your early childhood and everything you go through, it doesn't have to be the only defining thing necessarily about you, maybe. But back to Spain. What else do I remember about Spain? Like I said, not a lot about kindergarten. You, at your age, are a very smart kid. Like I said, it's hard for me to remember back, but I can't imagine that I was reading or writing at the level you're reading or writing at now at your age. I think a lot of that's due to, um, your mom being very proactive about introducing you to those skills, and I think those are very valuable and, um, you know, giving you a leg up or helping you be successful early in that academic realm. And I think I talked about this on other episodes, just school in general. I don't think I necessarily had I mean, it's just where I went because that's where other kids went. I don't think I necessarily had a goal, especially in kindergarten, but even in later grades, of what I wanted to get out of it. Um, I think I was always curious. I always liked to learn. Um, but the fact that you're going to be in a school setting for uh, so many of your waking hours of, when you're 6 to 18 or 22, whatever it may be, hopefully I can kind of instill in you the importance of making the most out of that. Really instill a love of learning and curiosity, and even if it's something you're not particularly interested in, get what you can out of it because it may help you dig deeper or understand something you do really enjoy in a different way with a different perspective and a different light. But yeah. So between 0 and 6, like I said, just some random memories out there. Um, what I am very thankful for is I had a really stable home life. So, and I know that's not always the case, and I'm thankful I feel like we've been able to give that to you, Genevieve. Um, but why I think I appreciate that is because even though I don't remember, so much of the first 5 or 6 years of my life, I can be really confident because I knew exactly what I was getting at home. I felt safe. I kind of knew what to expect. Um, that I can kind of imagine what my home life was during those first 6 years, even though I can't physically remember, the day to day of it. Um, and so I definitely appreciate my parents for giving me that. Um, Hobbies or things I enjoy doing outside of school or with family. Um, I mean, not a lot. 6 years and below. I remember in Spain, I think we got 3 channels. I remember Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street. Probably some Saturday morning cartoons. Um, as far as toys or whatnot, nothing big comes to mind. But I do remember that basketball court, and spending a lot of time out there with my older brothers, just about all of them who played or were interested in it at one level or another. And I remember it was a long time before I made my first basket, um, and I think from early on, I really gravitated toward the game of basketball, or really enjoyed doing it. I spent a lot of free time outside of school, practicing, playing, just shooting around. And I don't know if it's because my older brothers really enjoyed it, and it's something that I just did because they did. I don't know if it's something that was maybe my first dose of uh, positive feedback. It's something you can practice and get better at and see that improvement. Um, but I remember that starting kind of young in Spain. Um, Anything else about Spain? That's I'm sure I'll miss a lot, but I can always come back. After Spain, at about 6, I want to say, we moved to Virginia. We were there for actually longer than most places um, because my dad retired out of there. So not only were we in the military while we were in Virginia, but also, uh, in his jobs after he retired. But he was stationed out of Langley Air Force Base. And then that's where I did all of elementary school. I think I went to 1 year at Pocosin, and then the rest in. I remember the elementary school was called Tab Elementary. I don't remember what city it was in. Um, but again, I mean, I don't even think I can recall every single one of my elementary school teachers' names. Um, let's see, first grade, I believe I had Miss Sanders. The only thing I remember about that grade, I believe, is that she had a German Shepherd that she brought to some after school function. Um, Second grade, I would be guessing at my teacher's name. The only thing I think I really remember about second grade is um, another classmate wet their pants. That's it. I mean, I'm almost 40 years old, but it feels like I should be able to remember more about, a whole year of my life than, little snippets like this. Um, so I don't know what we can glean from this fact. And I don't know if that is the norm. I kind of feel like it is. Like there's not, the further you get away from a memory, the fewer you have, or the less accurate they become, which I think that makes sense. Um, Third grade, mm, not a lot if I'm remembering the right grade. I remember uh, times tables test with multiplication, probably addition, subtraction. I think I do remember um, a Native American coming in for some social studies, uh, uh, you know, project or part of the lesson, and thinking that was really cool. Just going over some third grade level Native American history and introducing me to that. It's probably about that time, and my older brothers would play too, but played and got into soccer through the local, um, community soccer program. Did that for a number of years, um, and then and that was usually at our school. Um, Fourth grade, Miss Emerson, I think. I think she wore her hair in a beehive hairdo. Um, I remember another classmate got hurt trying to jump over a fire hydrant. I know you love swinging. I definitely remember swinging and jumping from the swings, um, and doing that. And this is all at the same school, Tab Elementary. Fifth grade, I believe I had Miss Walton, who was the wife of Mr. Walton, who I believe was like the gym teacher. We didn't have a gym in our elementary school. We had like a kiva, which was kind of like this central area in the school where we'd go to and have assemblies. So we were either doing PE there or outside. Um, yeah. So, and what are you in fifth grade? Like 10 years old? So that's a quarter of my life. And there's very sporadic and sparse memories from that time. Um, and I'm sure if I sat down and thought harder, I could probably, um, extract, a lot more memories from there. If I looked at photographs from the past, which I've definitely seen a lot of, it would, remind me of some of those things. But when I think about back at that time, the stuff that immediately comes to my head is it seems very random and, uh, you know, not all inclusive by far. So, again, I don't know what we can glean from that. Um, but yeah, I'll figure that out. Sixth grade. Who did I have in sixth grade? I can't even remember my teacher's name. Also, still in Tab Elementary. Um, and that's just a blur. And then in junior high, also in Virginia. Started seventh grade, was only there for a couple months. Um, and then we moved up here to Michigan, which is where I finished out junior high and high school. Um, yeah. So if we go back to before we came to Michigan, just talking a little bit about, I know we've tried to focus the scope of this podcast to relationships, education, and work. Wasn't really in the workforce at that age, other than odd and end jobs or doing chores for an allowance. We've talked about education, and like I said, I don't have a lot of memories of it. I was always a pretty good student. I think it was a type of thing where, because I had so many older siblings and they were always pretty good students, it was something that it wasn't harped on at home, but almost just kind of expected. That you did your best and you paid attention and you got all your work in on time, type of thing. So there's definitely learning going on, but again, I think what could be helpful, and something I think I've realized as I got older, is one, never stop learning, but two, kind of understand what you're trying to get out of your education. Um, and I feel like maybe I could have gotten more out of it if I realized what I was going to be using it for, or um, yeah, if it was more than just doing it because I was told to do it, growing up. And then as far as relationships, so, a lot during that first, say, 10 years of my life, my relationships were heavily with my family. Like I said, I had a lot of brothers and sisters, so a lot of time spent outside of school is with them. Um, I do remember, some of my friends that I started spending time outside of school with. Um, Probably started in fourth or fifth grade. Uh, One classmate in particular who really also enjoyed basketball, and I think that's something we definitely bonded over. Um, he loved Michael Jordan, and I think it was in middle school where Michael Jordan, I think, retired the first time. And I met him that day, and he was sobbing and crying at his locker. But we would go up to the school, and back then without cell phones, my mom would drop us off with like a huge cooler of ice water, and would say come back in 3 or 4 hours and pick us up if you don't mind. And we just spend all day playing basketball and shooting hoops, and definitely remember in enjoying those times. And kind of coming back to basketball a little bit again. Like I said, I think that's probably one of my first loves. I never got extremely good at it. Um, but and I don't know if it was my personality, but I really enjoyed the practicing part, just getting better. Um, Spent a lot of time in, uh, the driveway, shooting hoops, dribbling. I remember specifically getting up early before school and going across the street to the parking lot and just dribbling the basketball. Um, I think I did that for a while until the neighbors called my parents and said I was making too much noise while they were still sleeping. Uh, but yeah, so relationship wise, it was mostly family and a couple of good friends in elementary school. Um, I think the first girl that I really liked was in fifth grade. I forget who I was talking to, but this came up recently. And I know you're going to come across this, and I wish I had the perfect answer to help guide you through this part of life. Um, so we'll probably just have to wait till that happens. But I, I think what I would say about relationships, I don't think anyone's prepared for that that change. When you go through puberty and you start feeling that way about other people, it's unexpected. It's a lot. It's a lot of emotions that you may not understand and you may not be able to control. Um, I forgot who I was talking to about this as well, but I almost wish I could, let you realize how you'd view relationships in 20 years when you're 30, 35, 40, and how different that is than, when you are 10, 15, 20 years old. But then again, I think of myself, and I'm sure if I told myself that when I was that age, I wouldn't listen. Or, you know, you're going to feel how you feel, and that's going to dictate a big part of your life, uh, you know, till you get older. And that is just part of life. And hopefully, your mom and I can help guide you through that because that's I think that's super important. And like we talk about relationships on here a lot, um, and how important that is. Not only the people you choose to be around you, but how you treat yourself and those people around you are going to heavily dictate kind of how content and happy you are, um, day to day. And so, trying to understand that aspect of your life. Um, it's a big part of the educational experience. It's a big part of school, not only learning the information, but meeting new people, um, and having different relationships with those people. And yeah, hopefully we can help guide you so that those relationships are healthy and um, you don't feel like you're alone when it comes to that, and hopefully we can help you sidestep some of the pitfalls that come along with that. Um, but yeah, so that was kind of elementary on back. And then we come up to Michigan. Um, and then um, from there, I have a little better memory. Um, still know people and still have relationships with people that I met when I was in seventh and eighth grade here in Michigan. And I don't know if that's part of it. I kind of wonder sometimes. I just mentioned, all the pros of, moving around in the military and getting a lot of different experiences, which apparently I can't remember. But I feel it had a positive impact on me. Um, but when I came to Michigan, you meet people. And before, when my dad was in the military, it seems like a lot of the other people in the community are also in the military, so they're going through a lot of the same experiences. So I think when I came to Michigan, it was one of the first times where you meet people and they've known their friend group since, elementary school or before. And I don't think I ever felt like jealous or like I missed out on that, but I did think it was kind of cool. And I almost wonder if, um, having those relationships or knowing those same people from a very early age, if maybe that helps your memory a little bit, because as you get older, you're constantly talking about the year before or what happened in second grade, or those memories are constantly coming up or maybe being the topic of conversation. Um, and I think I do have that to some degree, obviously, with my family, because you're always with them, and you are going through a lot of experiences together. Um, but again, I don't know how often we reminisce about the older times, although I'm sure it happens. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I think if I called any place home, it would definitely be Michigan, just because one, spent the most time here, but know the most people here and have the most relationships here in this state. Um, so middle school. Um, the day I actually came up here a little bit early, my dad was already up here working, came up a little bit before the rest of the family because basketball tryouts were going on. Um, uh, and that was probably the first school team I was part of, was in seventh grade. Um, and we were terrible, but it was a lot of fun. Met a lot of really good people. Some people that I still know. Um, and yeah, it was probably a wake up call too, because I think when you're little, you have dreams of, being a professional, this or that, and you know, when you love something so much, you wanna do it forever. But even at that age, I think you realize that there's a lot more to the game than just shooting hoops in your front yard or in your driveway. It's more than being able to make a basket. It's a lot about athleticism and other things that come into play. Um, but still loved it. It was a lot of fun. It was a good way to get to know people. Um, Again, don't can't remember a whole lot of uh, teachers from middle school. Um, I could throw a couple names out there, but again, did did pretty good in school, but again, didn't have like any kind of burning desire to do well, or didn't have, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to be or do. And I think that's important too, and I think I mentioned this before, is um, if if I could instill in you, or we could talk about or discuss, or kind of, if you could find something that you're passionate about, that you could make, a career. I think that's super valuable. I think there's so many people that um, don't know exactly what they want to do, and so they end up, just doing whatever comes along, or um, so many people end up uh, not doing exactly, or very few are doing exactly what they're doing, or thinking they're going to do when they're in middle school or high school. And part of that's just, life and what jobs are available. And, the demand for those jobs. But I think some of it can be your chances of doing something you enjoy improved if we have those conversations when you're younger, and you're actually thinking about that and planning for it, as opposed to you know just going through the day to day of school and getting to college or out in the workforce and trying to figure it out last second type of thing. Um, I think that is that is helpful because, like, going back to the scope of the podcast a little bit, what I really love for this to even help out with a little bit would be to um, help you understand relationship so you can have healthy ones, understand education so you can make the most out of it, and then also just kind of instill a somewhat natural curiosity or enjoyment of learning. And then for work, um, you know, do something that you enjoy or that you're good at, um, or that you don't dread going to on Monday. And I think if you can be comfortable and confident and happy in those three buckets, I think that's gonna go a long way. Um, let's see. So middle school relationships. There's probably a few other uh, girls that I definitely had feelings for. Um, again, um, I'm sure you're gonna go through that and multiple times. And um, I don't know. I was a pretty shy kid, and just like your upbringing, you tried to uh, go back and see how the way you thought or acted affected future actions or the person you become. Uh, and I think a lot of these earlier relationships um, are gonna do the same thing. They're gonna affect how you look at and approach future relationships, uh, and, and that's tough because as a father, I love to be able to set you up so you have just positive experiences. But obviously, that's way easier said than done, and you're gonna go through a lot of relationships, and they're not all gonna be uh, picture perfect. Um, but hopefully, you know, we can talk about it and or we can talk through the good ones and the bad ones, knowing that uh, you know you can learn from each and hopefully use those lessons to uh, you know pick future relationships or engage in future relationships that are healthier and more beneficial and make you happier. Um, high school, Lincoln High School. Also went to Lincoln Junior High, Bessie Hoffman Junior High. High school, you've been to Grandpa's house. That's the house that we've been in since we moved up to Michigan. So that's where I lived in junior high as well as high school, right there on Stony Creek. Um, and wasn't too far from the high school. Um, I think my high school experience was, I don't know, fairly common. I think we had a pretty diverse group of kids. Um, I think, our size was probably right there in the middle um, as far as number of students. Good teachers, bad teachers. I think a lot of, kind of the subcultures in high school that you hear about. I think that just about all those were representative. But there was the athletes and the jocks and the nerds and the, people that, were not interested in school at all. And I think it was a really good, diverse group of kids. Like I said, I was pretty shy, so I didn't I didn't have a huge social circle. In fact, I think I went back to, what was it? It must have been the 20th high school reunion just last year. And, I mean, these are people apparently I went to school with for 4 years. And, um, I didn't recognize, a lot of them, partly because I hadn't seen them in 20 years, but partly just because even while I was in high school, I wasn't going out there and being overly social. Played some sports, did a little bit of track and football and basketball. But you run into, a lot of the same people in those circles. Um, but again, something looking back on, I think there's a lot of opportunities in school that I didn't take advantage of, whether that be in some of the other sports or drama or art classes or choir, and I get out. I wasn't interested in those things at that time, so uh, maybe it's a little bit of hindsight being 2020. Um, but I think your educational experience, whether that takes you through high school or through college or whatever it may be, I think one of the most valuable factors of that time in your life, my life, your life, going through that is time. I mean, it's a period of time where you you do have obligations, you do have school obligations, but what I found is, when you get out in the workforce, you're especially, you start a family, and you do get these other real world responsibilities. You have much less time to, explore hobbies or learn about things, or your time is just taken up so quickly with these other responsibilities, which can be great. They can be very fulfilling, but just knowing how valuable that 12, 16 years worth of time is while you're going through it, I think is big. Um, so hopefully I can help you realize that. But again, I could totally see myself at that time probably being told that, and shrugging it off, or not making it a priority. But uh, that's important. That's big. Let's see. So high school, and a few more memories there, but again, probably not as many as I think I should have. Um, Freshman year, probably normal, freshman experience. I was a 15 or 16-year-old in the same school as these, 18, 19-year-olds with beards and, uh, 100 pounds heavier than I was. Uh, Probably a little intimidating, but like I said, I kind of kept to myself, and uh, you know, I I really don't remember any instances of, um, that being an issue as far as bullying or anything, which I guess I'm thankful for. I'm sure that's not everyone's experience. Um, but again, yeah, my educational experience in ninth grade, it's a lot of going to class. I was learning, but looking back, it really felt like I was going kind of through the motions, getting information and kind of regurgitating it, um, and and I don't know. I'm sure retaining some of it, but probably not getting the most I could have out of that experience. And I think largely that's a mindset. Um, you know, Going into class and really trying to learn, and it really isn't about the grades or testing, which again I know is hard to get a high schooler to understand. uh, but it really is kind of learning the information and you know developing that curiosity or that love of learning um, just goes a long way and will really be beneficial once you get out of school. Learning does not stop when you get out of school, and um, if if you cease to learn, then you cease to grow, and you won't get better at your job. You won't get better at relationships, and I think you'll find life will just kind of become less interesting or more boring if you're not learning something, if you're not getting excited about something. Um, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for that growing up that I didn't intentionally not take advantage of it, but it yeah, it didn't dawn on me to do that. So hopefully you can, and you've come to a point where you really enjoy kindergarten, which I know is a long ways away from high school or college, but you really do seem to enjoy doing well and learning. Coming home and telling us about that. So I really hope um, that continues and that the testing of school or the obligations of school doesn't beat that love of learning out of you, and hopefully I can help with that. um, Sophomore year, a lot of the same, and even and we only got about 10 minutes left, but we'll just kind of clean up high school and maybe continue another night. Um, yeah, I mean, there was sports and there was school and there was home life, uh, and a lot of the same relationships. I always felt like I think I don't know if being shy is sometimes you trying to control the relationships around you. Don't think I really had many bad relationships, um, but you know, I but I wasn't overly social, so I wasn't really testing the limits of that maybe. Um, at home, I thought they were always good. I mean, my parents were always super solid. As far as siblings, you go through ups and downs with them, but overall, I think those were good. Work, had a number of kind of jobs. Worked with the athletic department at the high school while I was in high school. Mr. Wright was the athletic director back then. Um, and that was good. Just trying to, or just having a job and learning that side of things, or uh, being you know just having a job and being introduced to that side of things. I think is helpful. I mean, I think you're going to run into a lot of people who don't have their first job until they get out of school or get out of college, and I think a lot of the important things as far as doing well in a job, as far as showing up on time and working hard and doing your best, are a lot of the things that aren't explicitly taught in school, but are just as, if not more important than a lot of the information you learn in school. Um, but yeah, um, so it looking back, it feels very vanilla. It doesn't seem like there's a ton there, but I just wanted to share that with you. Um, and maybe as you go through those same years and those same grades, uh, if anything, maybe it makes me more cognizant of making it a priority to discuss those things, or as far as the relationships you have in school, which we definitely talked about, your friends groups. And I know that'll change as you get older. Not only the types of relationships you have, but probably you even wanting to talk to talk to me about them. But know that I'm always around and available to do that, um, because, and I think your mom and I try to make this a priority, is treating yourself and others the right way is really in the end going to make you a lot happier. The education part, I think it's made me realize that I just constantly want to let you know the importance of education, not getting straight A's, not, getting perfect marks on tests, uh, but actually learning and being excited to learn and wanting to learn. And if you don't understand something, wanting to find the answers. Um, and then as far as work, maybe just look at some of the things that you're not learning in school, and hopefully we can teach you a lot of those things at home that will make you successful in the workplace. Uh, the intangibles that aren't taught and tested, but are going to make you successful or happier because, um, it makes you more successful in the workplace. So that was a little bit all over the place. Like I said, that there wasn't a lot planned for that. And I don't, because of my lack of memories, I don't know how much of a that gave you a look into the first 18 years of my life or whatnot. But again, I think what I've learned with this podcast is if nothing else, just me having that conversation with myself or with others, you know, kind of reminds me of what priorities I want to, um, you know, constantly keep in front of you so that you make the most of, this time growing up. But that's all I got for tonight. Love you, buddy. And that's it.